The windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror for a reason. Let's focus on what's in front of us, leave what behind us, and let's focus on where we're going, the road we're traveling, because where we went yesterday doesn't matter. Where we're going tomorrow is the only results that we can measure ourselves by.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Rilla Labs. We are here with the one and only Paulie B. Paulie is one of the best people that I know in the industry and at large. He is the senior account executive at Westlake Royal, one of the top companies in home improvement. He has been in the business, he'll tell you himself, for 40 years. He holds some Guinness World Records. He was a former WWE announcer. He is a DJ, wedding organizer, entrepreneur, and he is the best shingle salesperson this side of the Atlantic Ocean.
And you wondered why I'm not married. Okay? He's just explained why I'm not married. Now, I'm not going to talk about that situation in Japan, which we'll go back to another time. But it's such an honor to be here, to be a strategic partner with Rilla Voice.
Welcome to the show, man.
I'm going to tell you what, it's such an honor. And from the first day I met you, I really believe in the mission and what you're doing. And with partners that, you know, with other people that you have on the show, and everything that you're doing is truly the mission, is to change this industry with a better approach and a better mousetrap for better results.
Oh, we're happy to have you, man.
It's such an honor to be here.
First of all, man, every time I see you, you got some crazy story. I've learned to train my brain to not think that it's a bunch of crap because every time you tell me your crazy stories, it always ends up being true. So what crazy adventures have you been up to lately, man?
Well, this is crazy because there really is no crazy anymore. It's so busy trying to travel, to educate. You know, our industry is at a point where training is at the highest demand it's ever been. You know, as a lot of people know me, I've been doing this since 1983, canvassing, and I'm waiting. The only crazy, something a little crazy. The Guinness World Book of Records is finalizing and processing my request I will be listed as the youngest canvasser in the home improvement industry history.
The Guinness Book of World Records. It's always
no one else has ever applied for that, so maybe that's why. But that's the only crazy thing.
How do you get the Guinness World Record to give you? How do you go about that?
So what you do is you submit for a category. And believe it or not, there was nobody that ever submitted for a category as being the youngest canvasser. And then you have to document. I had to have people who could document my career from 83 forward, that I've been in the industry that long and started that age and never been out of this industry 1 week since 83.
The youngest canvasser in the industry.
In the home improvement industry, 83 for Amory.
How old were you when you started doing that?
I was 12 years old.
How does a 12-year-old find themselves doing canvassing? Home improvement.
So this
Vinyl
is a true
siding,
story.
right?
Well, it's a crazy story, but I'll save the labor and give you the baby. I'll get right to it. I was selling newspapers door to door, you know, like Grip Magazine and things like that. But they didn't want you to work like on the weekends. They only want you to work during the weekday. I can't make enough money doing this, right? So I answered this ad in the comic book. It said, sell Mason shoes. And the reason I got excited, they had like demo kits, and they had and I still have the actual shoe box I sold was still at the house. And they give you little ashtrays that you would hold while the customer would ash their cigarette while you were trying shoes on them. I'm like, this sounds like a lot of fun. So the first time that I ever knocked on a door, I ever tried to sell shoes, it was a sales manager for Amory Home Improvement, which was one of the largest in the industry. And it came in and he said, go through your pitch. So about an hour later, all he said was, what's your mama's name? What's your mama's name? I was like, man, I've done something wrong. I want to tell my mama. And he wouldn't let up. So I give him my address. I went home. And then the next day I came home from school. My mom's like, on Saturday, take your bike to Mr. Johnson's house and do what he says. And he's going to pack you a lunch or whatever he tells you to do it. So I went down, put my bike in the car. Long story short, he took me in the neighborhood to drop me off. He gave me a stack of what we call door hangers that you hang on a door. And he said, ask people if they like an estimate for vinyl siding.
Wow.
And that's what I did. And I brought back like 20 signed ones, you know, for potential appointments. And he said, the next day, he said, bring these down to the office, meet some of the guys, and bring your door hangers so they can see you've been out working. So I go in there. This is the first time I've ever met a home improvement guy, right? This is 1983. Minimum wage is $1.65.
40 years ago.
It has been 40 years. Wow, I'm getting old. $1.65 was minimum wage. So I go in there and I'm watching guys get paid out from jobs that they had done the prior week, obviously. Guys getting $2,200, $2,400. Now, keep in mind, they were giving my mom like $40, which is almost a grown man's wage of working a whole week.
Right.
But when I saw this, I'm like, I don't care who I got to kill. I don't care what I got to do. But I'm going to make $2,300, $2,400 a week. And it was a protected business. You couldn't get into this business. Like, no one wanted to teach you how to take money out of their pocket. The only way you got into it, somebody either had to die or they went to jail. That's the only way you got into it. There was no other way.
There was no other way to
There was no other way to get into it. And then you had to be a road agent. You didn't get to just go, when you got older, like 16, 17 years old, and do things like that. You had to go through different phases. You had to work in the call room. Right. You had to be a demo guy, where I would go and set up the demos in the house, and I would go sit in the car for 3 or 4 hours.
You would set up the demo for the sales guy?
Then I would go sit back in the car.
So you would come and bring the vinyl side.
Signing the windows, set it all up.
And that's it.
Sit in my car, do my homework.
It's like a busboy at the restaurants.
It was. My biggest promotion was when I was 16 and I could drive. They put me on what was called flower duty.
What does that mean?
Flower. Like a flower, like you see these flowers running. So every home improvement job, so you have a 3-day rescission.
Right.
So on Monday or Wednesday, there was one competitor we had called Statewide, and they would always deliver on Mondays and Wednesdays flowers to the homeowners they just signed a contract to. So they would have me switch different cars of the different salespeople. So they taught me how to track and follow the flower truck to see where they delivered the flowers to.
Yeah.
And I would write them down. Then I would go to the payphone, and then I would call the sales guy and say, okay, you need to go to this house, and this house. And they'd knock on the door to the left or the right, and they said, hey, have you ever thought about vinyl siding? Well, absolutely. Well, actually, I just signed the deal. What do you mean signed the deal? Well, what was the price? You could back out on it. Well, it was $8,000. We'll do it for $6,000. And then they would flip the deal.
God damn.
Yeah.
Because they knew because of the flowers that they had just signed a deal with a competitor.
Yes.
And they would go and track that to the right home and be like, oh, we'll give it to you for, God damn. How did you know that it was the flowers that...
Well, we knew because there was a sales guy that used to work for Statewide. And he left and came over and he tipped us off on how they did the system. It worked for about 3 or 4 months.
It was the flower clothes.
I was wearing mustaches. I was wearing wigs. I was driving Cadillacs. I was driving...
Man, it's so funny. If it was today, somebody would have come with a nap to put the flowers. All the flowers.
But it was a different time, and it was a lot of great things come out of this industry. And we're going to talk, today about the evolution and all the different things where we are with recession. But, we've been there before. But what those gentlemen had was they had the art of selling, being performers.
Right.
And what was so unique for me, all the people I learned from were not from Tennessee.
Right.
They were from Long Island. They were from Staten Island. They were from Brooklyn. They were traveling to these small towns. They would work a couple months. So that is where I developed my art of showmanship at an early age. That's where the flow in my voice to be able to talk very fast, because I don't talk like a regular country guy.
Right. Did back then, you talk a lot about the art and the performance. Did we have like these sales processes and these sales scripts that we have now, or was that like way too early for that?
So, it's so funny. Like, guys would just, they would drink before they went in the home. Most of the time they did a better job intoxicated. Yeah. But it was how creative can we be? Like, for example, we would challenge each other, like, you've got to go in the home, break a piece of their furniture, and still write the contract. You got to hit their car in the parking lot. And they were constantly making things up on the fly. There was no, 10-point selling system or steps. It was all
like
impromptu.
a jazz band.
Yeah,
It's like doing improv.
they would good cop, bad cop. Go in. Oh, he did a horrible job. I'm going to make this guy sit in the car. But, because he said some things he shouldn't have, I'm going to give you a discount. But these guys were performers and they were entertainers, and they would do whatever it took to close the sale. We're not talking 2.5, 3 hours. We're talking 6 hours, 7 hours.
Oh my God!
But you got to understand, you're in small country towns and mountain towns and towns with coal mines and areas where people likely didn't have TVs. They heard about a fancy guy with fancy watches and a suit and fancy
So it
cars.
was an entertainment.
It was a show. And when you could go to church and talk about the signing guy was in my house,
Wow!
it was a status symbol.
Wow! They'll let you be in there for 6 hours.
People would pay you more money for a siding job to put on a trailer than they paid for their trailer. But back in the old days, what they don't understand today, everybody worked in teams of 2.
And like 2 reps would go to the same house?
Right. One person would isolate the husband and wife in one side of the house, and the other rep, which would be me, I'd be playing Candyland or Shoots a
You'd be putting on the show.
Kids.
Oh, with
the kids to keep the kids isolated so they can hard press the husband and the wife.
It was a 2-man job all the time.
It was a 2-man job.
Wow.
And we always did that so we could isolate, the homeowner. Because then you didn't have cell phones. There wasn't cell phones.
Right. This was the entertainment of the day.
Right. There was no internet.
Yeah.
This was a show.
They were paying for a show.
and believe me, they paid for a show. And a lot of these people in some of these small towns, it wasn't uncommon. They go to the backyard and they dig up the money in a coffee can, and it would have dirt on it.
Right.
And that's how they paid you. So the evolution of our business has evolved so much.
Yeah.
But those were humble beginnings for me that I wouldn't want to go back and change. And because of that, I will pedal plastic till I hit the casket. No hesitation.
Pedal plastic till you hit the what?
Hit the casket. When I take a dirt nap. I'm not planning on taking a dirt nap anytime soon.
Every time I thought I learned how to speak English, then you come at me with one of these things, man. That's like
We call it squirrel talk. We don't have any syllables in this album.
like Dora did not say that with Dora the Explorer, man. She did not teach me that.
Was she the one, Dorothy? Was she the one?
No, Dora the Explorer with the
I was talking about Dorothy the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, when Dora teaches American Spanish, she teaches the Americans English. To say it's like
so Dora was way after my time.
yeah, like
I had Big Bird, Artie, and Gilligan's Island. That's what's wrong with me. That's all I had.
You got your vinyl siding with your show. That's so funny. So talk to me about that, right? Because you've been in this industry 40 years, right?
And how did you start?
Yeah, I know. 40 years. You got the world record. Tell me a little bit about that transition. I go on ride-alongs today with customers, and there's no show. there's no person playing music outside with the kids. It seems like super methodical, right? Like you have the 10-step process. You walk into the home. You have your presentations. You have your demos. Everything's insanely structured. And when you talk about it, it almost sounds like literally like a jazz band. Like you're doing improv. You're trying to do tricks. You're trying to be as creative as you possibly can be. It's like an entertainment. What do you think has been the biggest thing that kind of because now it's so scientific, right? What do you think is the biggest aspect of the art that we've lost from everything you've seen?
Well, so the thing of the day, when people went into the home in the old days, we drove an agenda. Right. We told people what we wanted them to believe. They didn't have any way to cross-check what we were saying, any way to prove what we was saying was right or wrong. Right. So there was a lot of people manipulated into buying decisions.
Right.
So as more education started getting brought into the industry, the internet and things. So what I teach today is 2 different concepts. First concept is I believe the house is sick, and it's our job to write a prescription to make it healthy again, right? Yeah. So wear a lab coat. You go in and you talk about how trapped moisture creates problems in the home.
Right.
And then you do all these tests with moisture management meters or thermal energy cameras, and you do a complete diagnostics. The true solution to be successful today is you quit selling and you help people buy. Right. A consultative selling approach, selling a solution more than you sell the product.
Right, because at the end of the day, nobody's trying to buy a shovel. They're trying to dig a hole, right?
Right.
They're trying to.
They're scared.
Yeah.
They want to advocate. And get to understand some people have seen all kinds of cons and hustles from concrete and all these things. So you're walking in, so they're getting you there because they want to buy.
Right.
But then when they get there and they see you and they're like, okay, now should I trust this guy?
Yeah.
And there's so much psychology that goes into like the first 30 seconds at the door. Like when you meet that person, you know, your vocal pacing. If I'm coming, you're talking real fast. I'm going to talk real fast. I'm going to keep up with you. But if I'm in Alabama, I'm going to slow down a little bit.
Every time I get on a call with somebody from the South, man, you've told me, you'd be like, hey, man, you talk with this Yankee speed.
You have to slow down. People want to buy from people who are a reflection of themselves. They want to look in a mirror in you and see themselves and say, I trust this guy because he's like me.
Right.
So the psychology of listening. And this is the paradox in our business. Salespeople think that the art of selling is talking. That's a complete incorrect statement. The art of selling is asking the right questions and shutting up.
Shutting the hell up.
The customer will tell you how to buy. The customer will tell you how to sell them. You expose the pain points and close with the solutions. But if you don't listen, see, and this is the biggest problem. A lot of salespeople in the process will sell, and the customer will be, hey, I'm ready to buy. I give you $5
and
I'm ready to buy. I'm not going through. I'm only on step 6 or step 10. I'm not slowing down now.
But wait, there's more.
No, you gotta know when to hold them. You gotta know when to fold them. An old famous country music singer, Kenny Rogers, said, and it's so true. You have to listen to what the customer says.
Yeah.
You can sell it, and if you don't be careful, you can buy it back.
Right. You can sell it, you can buy it back.
You can buy it back.
God damn.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's some wisdom.
I'm like still trying to wrap my head around the casket with the basket. Stuff like that.
Okay. It completely slaughtered a peddling plastic till I hit the casket, not knitting a basket in the casket, or anyway, something like that.
So that's very interesting that you mentioned that. And I want to ask you about some of these things that we found with the numbers. You've been through a lot of recessions in this industry.
3.
08, before 08.
98.
98 was a big recession in the space. And we're in the middle of a recession. Some markets are
but
feeling
are
it
we?
more than, I mean, depends on the market, right?
But listen to what I'm saying. But are we? Mm-hmm. So what is okay. I'm not really that smart, right? So I'm from the South. Give me the true definition of what a recession is.
Recession is when demand contracts and there's a lowering in consumer spending because of macroeconomic conditions.
But a lowering, is that lowering mean everybody has less spending, or does that mean as an average, or does that mean that the process that you're trying to sell is generating X? What if you change the process and generated Y?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So there's ways to
Is it home related? Is it new home construction, or is it remodeling construction?
Right. So if we're talking, well, it depends on the market, right? Because if you look at California, right? With a lot of the people who could finance the home remodelings there, it's like all the tech companies going out of business, the layoffs, and people have less share of wallet to spend in their home. So you see both. You see probably markets in the Midwest who are not getting hit right now, but you see the leads going up because there's less new homes being built and the same number of contractors competing for the same number of leads. So I don't know if you call it a recession. I call it it's not as good as the COVID years.
I call it fear.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
Because if people aren't spending because of a recession, they're fearing
the future
loss of money, loss of investment, loss of return.
Right.
But just because there's that fear, do you think products on the house don't stop deteriorating?
Right.
Roofing doesn't stop failing. Windows don't stop clogging up. Siding doesn't stop being friendly and waving at you.
Yeah.
All these things are going on.
Right.
You forgot to tell your house that you were in a recession.
Yeah. The house doesn't care.
See, the problem is, as an industry, we listen to that noise. We allow that distortion to change our perception on reality, which affects our perception, which affects our ability to deliver the right message. And misery loves company, and we all go down this hole together. But I can tell you, I have sold through a recession in 98. I have sold through the recession 2007. And I will continue to flourish because I love a recession. You know why?
Right.
Because it separates the salespeople from order takers.
Right. That's when you have to like actually sharpen your axe.
That's when you should be doing, if you've been doing the same thing the way you should all the way through the process,
Right.
you wouldn't fear a recession.
Yep.
People fear it because it's not gravy. You just can't show up and just hand out your hands and
Yep.
take all this money.
Yep.
Right. But people still need needs identified, right?
Right. I mean, if you think about it, what you just said, in 2006, 2007, right before the 08 recession, which is like hit the home improvement market hard, you had, I mean, Window Nation founded by the brothers in 2006. BJ took over West Shore, I think, in 2006. Tommy Mello with A1 Garage, he started 2006, 2007. So to your point, what had happened there is that, the big players that got kind of comfortable with being order takers, they weren't able to adapt to the new kind of like the new standard and the contraction. They kind of left the market open there for the people who kind of adapted. They adapted the new technologies, the new innovation. They focus on SEO, online marketing, and they kind of they took that white space because the homes were still there, right? The people still have those problems, like you said. It's just like needed different strategies to try to get
That's
them.
the secret sauce. I was going
Right.
to tell you. What you hit on is exactly the secret sauce, and here's what it is. When times are tough, you should ramp marketing up better than ever before. You should study the sales performance of your salespeople more than you ever did before. You should coach, you should train, you should market, you should use AI and all these different things more than ever before because everybody else scales back.
Right, and then but the homes are still there. That's the thing.
homes are still there. They still have needs.
Yes, and they
Right.
still have the problems don't go away. So it's like, again, trying to overcome that fear from the consumer, right? And the ones that can, those are the ones who increase the market share, right? Because
People justify any expenditure if they want it bad enough.
Right.
No matter what it is.
No matter what.
You go to a beer store or a convenience store and you walk in and you buy a 6-pack and you're like, oh, that's too expensive. That's $10.
Right.
Then you go to a Yankees game and you pay $25 for a 20-ounce beer and you're happy to get it.
Yeah.
Right? Because you justified the value and the worth in that purchase.
You look at the iPhone sales are always going up. Recession, no recession. Everybody's getting their new iPhone because they justify the expense. Yeah.
I don't like as an industry and never have that we preach the doom and gloom and the recession.
Right.
I think it's an exciting time because, again,
Opens up market share. Yeah.
What are the fears? People are afraid, I could sell my home, but I couldn't equally go and buy another one. Right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Or, if I invest money in my home now, maybe I may not to get it out. But what if you approach it different, like Mrs. Jones? I understand your home is an investment. Let's look at some things. If you don't need any of my products, I'm obviously not going to try to sell them to you.
Yeah.
But did you know that trapped moisture can lead to a lot of problems? Mold,
Right.
black mold, which is toxic, which can, cause all these different issues that could kill your cat. They can cause insomnia. They can cause respiratory problems.
Right.
If those things are going on in your home and I identify and have a solution to fix it, do you think it really matters whether you're in a recession or not?
Right, because it doesn't matter if the market's contracted 10% when you're finding something that's
It's mindset.
Right.
It's all about a champion mindset and mentality. You can't listen to the noise. You have to put the blinders on and stay the course and focus on the end result.
That is so cool that you said something there. We recently did a data analysis that talks about that, where like you yourself as a sales rep qualify yourself and your company to the customer. And you basically let them know, like, listen, I'm just here to see if what we offer is a good fit for you. There's like, we started looking at all these data from like markets like California that are being hit really hard. It's like the numbers are dropping, right? And we looked at what is it that the top performers are doing to keep their close rates the same or steady or even up and increasing their market share and their revenue, even in markets like California, right? That are really tough right now. And one of the things we saw, one of the topics that shows up often, and we saw this in hundreds of thousands of conversations, is sales reps setting their criteria with the customer. So like, for instance, if you're selling baths, you tell a customer like, listen, Mrs. Homeowner, today, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you these 4 things that our company does really well. You know, we're the best at motorized baths. We're the best at financing. We're the best at the service. We're the best. And if those things matter to you, then you should definitely, and if they don't matter to you, these 4 things don't matter to you, then I can point you to the right direction. You know, if the price is what matters to you and the most affordable, I can point you in the right direction with other companies, but this is what my company does really well, and seeing if there's a fit
to
between
sell
the
without to sell. Instead of selling, you're caring now.
Yeah.
It's that transfer of real emotion, which is really the definition of a sales process in my mind.
Right.
It's transferring the fact that I generally care about you as an individual and your home.
Right. You're like this, you're literally saying this is what would disqualify you from doing business with us, because if you don't care about these things, you care about these other things, I'm happy to give you. And then it becomes that thing. It's like you're the doctor, you're being the consultant. You're just there to help. And if your company can help, amazing. Because then the homeowner trusts you more. So
right.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you talk about, so let's dig in there, like about the champion mindset. And how you can continue to put out great numbers. We have customers even in really tough markets that are putting out great numbers. They're growing year over year, even in markets that are really tough. And one of the, like, and I just want to go into some of those things that you can do in the home to actually make sure that you're consistently kind of hitting those numbers, even recession or no recession, right? Because that's what's going to win the market share. One of the things we saw, we did an analysis of a bunch of conversations in California this year. And we saw that on average, people in California, they're closing like if you're looking at windows, baths, kitchens, the conversion rates have dropped to like the low double digits. Like we're talking 10%, 12% on average, right? But we looked at the top performers in California, right? Their conversion rates are still at 30%, 40%, 50%, much higher than the rest. Number one thing we saw that they're talking about more than anybody else, financing. They're still talking about financing. They're still talking about financial terms.
Absolutely.
Unpack that. I mean, I saw the data. I understand it. Why is that? Why is it that people who focus a lot on how to pay for something, why is it that they're closing much more than anybody else?
Well, so we used to call it a lot of different phrases in the day. We call it toting the note, right? Because as a presentation approach, it's like, don't worry, like up front, don't worry about the cost. We got finance programs that can take care of any of that, right? Because as consumers, we are conditioned. We know what we call our monthly nut.
Right.
Well, all our bills are expensive, expendable income. We know exactly what our credit card payments are. When you come to my home, I already know all that subconsciously, and I already know what I can afford to pay.
Right.
Before you even come in, I've already got that number right here.
Right.
So when you feed into that psychology, like, look, don't worry about that. We've got payments that can fit into your payments that you can, and then once you've got them on the buy-in, then you work on the bundling process.
Right.
Because here's where people screw up, and this is how you can use financing to close more sales. People go in, I'm a roofing salesman. People go in, I'm a siding salesman. Go in, I'm a window salesman. No, I'm a consultant to identify all the problems in your home, and I'm going to provide a formula, and I'm going to sell you the siding. I'm going to sell you the windows. I'm going to sell you the roofing. I'm going to sell you the gutter. I'm going to sell you the trim. I'm going to sell you the decking. And you know what's great, Mrs. Jones? I'm going to roll all this into one payment. You're going to have one payment.
Huh. Yeah. And then when you put it in that sense, the $10,000, $25,000 expense turns into something that they can digest with all the other things that they pay for on a monthly basis. People have been paying mortgages
for 15, 20, 25 years.
Right.
We are like structured. There's somebody right now calling for financing. Financing rates are what they are, and they're going to continue to be a very important part of this business. I'm glad you understand. Have a great day. So, I may get another call about financing. You're trying to cut me out of business over here. I just met you already trying to cut me off. That's my life story. I always get cut off somewhere.
Oh my God.
But the point of it is you use financing to sell more jobs.
Right.
That's a lot of people fear that, because when we went through COVID,
so a lot of people are not doing it well. Like the reps still put the resistance. They just still don't want to incorporate it into their sales process.
Because they don't believe in it themselves.
Right.
The people who don't believe don't achieve.
Right.
You have to buy into that process. You have to truly believe, and I believe in my heart because of financing, I can literally help people save their home to whereas if they didn't finance it, they would not be able to solve the problems.
Right. That's financing. I want to talk about a different thing that I saw because I want you to unpack it because I just saw the numbers.
Yeah.
And I want you to unpack it for me because I think you can add some color here. So we saw financing. The other thing that we saw is price, right? When you talk about finance, you talk about price. For whatever reason, the people in markets that we're talking about, like that are getting hit really hard, West Coast, right? These markets are suffering. Average conversion rates are dropping to the low double digits, 10%, 15%, right? One of the things we saw that the top performers who are keeping their conversion rates consistent, their NSLI is high, revenue's high, is that they're talking about pricing later in the conversation than the average reps. We saw that in these markets that are getting hit right now, the average time that the rep mentions pricing and starts selling the price is at 1 hour mark. And the top performers who are keeping their conversion rates up is an hour and 39 minutes. So 39 minutes later, consistently. What the hell is going on there? Why is talking about the price later?
So, first of all, a couple statements. The price is the price is the price. And second, the sweetness of price is gone after the bitterness of poor quality remains. Take those two pieces and plug it in what I'm getting ready to tell you. The reason why that model fails, because you're not selling any value. If you make the value proposition, if I just come in your home and I say I can make your home so energy efficient, you're going to save potentially an extra $2,000 a year. I can make your home healthy where you're not going to have any problem with termites.
Right.
I can manage moisture. I can make your home 45% quieter.
Right.
If I make my value proposition high enough,
Right.
the price is never a factor.
So-
it's never a factor.
So it's basically that these people that like the average salespeople, they're not building enough value before getting to the price. They're not spending enough time
They're showing up and they're throwing up, right? And they're tuned into what I call the WITFM, the great radio station of life. What's in it for me? We. Instead of you. So they're not really focusing on solving the problem.
Right.
And you know what's happened is that mentality through COVID where things have been so easy.
Yeah.
You know, I
So they're
mean,
not
you
used
just
to-
had to be a professional visitor and show up and write the ticket.
Yeah.
But
so they're not
now,
building any value.
the buying behaviors change. And if the buying behavior changes, the selling process has to change.
Right.
And that's the noise in the channel because the consumer is not just going to jump at the first,
Right.
first thing. And then if you're giving a price before you built the value,
Before you even know what's the actual
they're not going to buy.
Yeah.
I want to sell you this phone for $35,000. You don't even know if it turns on or works.
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
even know the features and benefits.
You don't even know why I need the phone for.
But what if I say you're on an island and this is the only phone that can get you off to save your life? Now does it matter how much it costs?
Yeah,
No, it doesn't
yeah,
matter.
yeah.
It's the value proposition
Right.
and the presentation. And again, if you meet the needs of the demand high enough, price is never an issue to close.
So that's something interesting. I have a hypothesis. I want to get your thoughts on it. I think that's happening. It's like they're not building the value. They're not going through the process of actually discovering what are the needs of the homeowner. The other, I think, is just a matter of like the fact that they're spending more time in the home. Because I think about it as like why do you trust your friends and your family? Because you spend a lot of time with them, right? Because you bond with people when you spend time with them. And I think it goes back to your point of trust. We're all selling different versions of the same product, right? And at the end of the day, the difference is going to be, your brand, your reputation, the service that you give to your customers, but really the trust that they have in you and doing a great job in their home, which is their most valuable asset. And my hypothesis, when I see like the people that are talking about price later in the conversation, like 39 minutes later, they're closing like twice or three times more. I think, could it be just the fact that they're just like, the homeowners are trusting them more because they've spent more time with them and they've actually enjoyed their time with this person? Is it
People buy people
right?
first, then the products that follow.
Right.
There's a direct correlation. There always has been, and I'll challenge anybody that wants to go 2 or 3, 5, 10 rounds with me on this because I believe it, I've lived it, and I have made more millionaires in this business of this principle. The correlation, the more time you spend in the home translates to a higher probability of the closing.
Right.
Every single time. I teach this, I will not say the name of this organization, but I take a group of thousands of 23, 24-year-old kids who never sold a day in their life.
Right.
Never been in the home. Never had a job.
Right.
Still just got out of college and make them one of the top sales organizations in the country. Why? Because I focus on creating a selling system. They follow it step by step by step, but dig deeper in that. What I do is I teach them the first 45 minutes that you're in the home, you treat every homeowner like it's your grandmother and your grandfather.
Right. Try to bond
Dig
with
in,
them. Yeah.
bond with them, tell them your story. People want to help people. They want to be part of your success.
Right.
Ask somebody, to help. There's nothing wrong to ask somebody to help. And where people also, just to flip this real quick, you know how many salespeople have meant they closed a job? They feel like they stole something. They went out this door so quick they don't want to look back. Oh my God, I don't want to talk to them. Or they say yes.
Yeah.
Now's the chance to really be a hero. Ask, Mrs. Jones, did you love this experience we had today? Would you care to give me a testimonial?
Referral, yeah.
Would you care to?
Because they did. They enjoyed the experience with you.
Would you care to call up your sister, and let me come do? I mean, people want to be praised. They want to. People truly, genuinely want to help each other.
Right.
And they'll help other people. But you got to give people that good feeling, right?
Yeah.
Give people a chance to be a superstar.
And that's what you were saying. I think that also is based on the data and based on what you're saying is that, most salespeople don't train themselves to listen, right? They train themselves to talk and talk and talk and talk. And their talk ratios are like 75 to 85%, right? Something that we've seen from ever since we started Rilla. That was the first number that we looked at. And I think that they're not earning that time in the home with the homeowner, because imagine you're sitting there listening to this person talk and talk and talk, and they're not even asking you about you and what are your pains and what are your desires and what do you need and what do you want and what's actually going on in your situation. You're just talking. Is there some of that the homeowners are just getting tired of you being there because you're talking so much, and then the people that have spent a little bit more time are the ones who earned, that right to be there?
It's all about building a strong foundation. So I have a client that I've been working with now for 3 months, and he told me something he did, which I thought was crazy, but turned out being one of the greatest sales tools. If he's coming to your house, he'll call him and say, Sebastian, I'm on the way to your house. I'm going by the store. You need a loaf of bread or some soda or something?
Yeah.
And every once in a while, Homer's like, yeah, bring me a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
Every time he stops at the store and brings home a 6-pack of beer or a loaf of bread, he closes every single time. Every single time.
So he brings him a little.
Brings him something that they allow him to help them. He closes every single time.
Bring a pack of beer. That's how you fight the recession.
Fight the recession.
That is so fun. You know who started doing that recently? The hotels. You go to the Hiltons, at the Hilton hotels, and they ask you when you check in, it's like, do you want a chocolate chip cookie? You're like, yeah, I want a chocolate chip cookie. You just eat the cookie, you feel so good. It makes you. That is so funny. Just bring a pack of beer.
But it's just it's taking the sell out of the sell and making it emotional, making it personal.
So you lower the defenses, you make sure that everybody.
But you do it genuinely. In the old days, everything was done that we did was off cons and hustles, was manipulation.
It was a trick.
So my journey is to teach people that you can be more successful by truly being a genuine consultant and really focus on helping people. Doing the right thing. I like to sleep good at night, right?
Yeah.
I've had a lot of nights I didn't sleep good,
but
I like to sleep good, and I like to do something that's going to be an impact on others.
Right.
And you have to train. It's a mentality, right? You take storm chasers.
Right.
Storm chasers are going for the juggler, right? They're just riding it up. And the people who run these companies, what do? They make a bunch of money, go out and buy new cars or buy new motorcycles. They want you to get so in-depth into that lifestyle that you'll never leave. You got to keep being, you're fed into the drug. You got to keep doing it.
You have to keep spending money,
it's not about doing the right thing anymore.
Right.
It's about winning for your own needs.
Right.
And the consumer today, and the buying process, I would say there's some things in the buying process that are going to change. Mm-hmm. They're going to evolve. And one of the biggest evolutions, and I've been preaching this for 3 years, and I hope people buy into this and understand this, we have to prepare to out-Amazon. Yeah. People don't realize you can go online right now and buy siding, windows, roofing, shutters, mounts, vents, decking, every single building product that anybody would sell in the home, they can buy. Amazon's model and what they're planning to do and what they will eventually do is they're going to set up regional distribution points.
Right.
And they're going to replicate a model like the Zen Windows that somebody sells you windows direct and a video on how to measure them. You're going to measure them wrong, but they don't care. They sold you the windows and you got to hire your own contractor. That's what they're going to do. They're going to sell you the building materials and give you a list of contractors to install.
Right.
They don't care whether they get installed or not, but it empowers. We have conditioned the consumer to be empowered, to have control of the buying process. I don't have to wait on Sebastian Siding to show up. I can order from Amazon at 1 o'clock in the morning.
And then just get it installed.
How many people want to call you at 1 o'clock in the morning? Do a virtual call at 1 o'clock. I can get it anytime I want. I'm in control.
Right.
Until it gets installed improperly, they're like, I should have hired a company.
I should have hired a reputable company.
But then they'll justify a million reasons why it was okay because they don't want their wife to be mad at them.
Right.
They'll blame it on someone else. But the point I'm trying to make is we're in an evolution of change and involvement in our industry.
Yep.
That is going to be one of the biggest ones is you're going to see distribution models change. And you're going to see acquisition companies control a large percentage of the remodeling organizations. I project in the next 2 years with 5 new acquisition companies out there, I can name them, but I won't. There's going to be over 725 acquisitions because they're all targeting between...
The private equity companies?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're going to target 100 to 25 each, and it's going to shrink. There's going to come a time 3 to 5 years from now, there could be 15 companies controlling every aspect of the industry.
How does if you stay independent, how do you compete with that? With a private equity that's bringing in all this money from
back up. Why would a company go to a private equity company? I know the answer. You know the answer why they would even consider?
Cash out? I don't know.
No, that's not the answer. That's what everybody thinks it is. Some people, but here's the real answer. Independent companies sitting here on an island. They don't have the money for marketing,
right?
They don't have money for canvassing,
right.
Lead generation, don't know anything about artificial intelligence.
Right.
They don't have consultants, they don't have guidance, they don't have people smarter than them. They're out here, sink or swim.
Right.
But when you have a big company,
you got the network, you got all the resources, you got all the things, all the business practices,
the power.
You got the learnings.
You had here's the key word. You have the scale.
Right.
You can scale what they're doing to your business.
Right.
And now you can survive. Now it's like a life preserver. It's nothing negative. It's the greatest thing in the world. They can say my business and they'll let me stay on for a little while and give me a cash influx.
Right.
So is it positive? Is it negative? It depends on who you talk to.
Do you think there's a future of independent companies with this, like kind of like the way the market's going?
I think it's going to, unless you're a large player who can do all this stuff in-house, you're going to diminish, and it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to be involved.
Have you seen something like this in like the previous years, like where there was like a big kind of conglomeration? Is this like an unprecedented thing that's happened?
They tried Century 21 back, which was was a real estate company.
Yeah.
They tried to buy Bird Siding, and they tried to kind of conglomerate these things together, and pace setters tried to do something like this. Pace setters actually would go in and put, what really destroyed that company, they were going to put liens on people.
Pace setters?
Pace setters was the second largest home improvement company. That's where Rodney Webb came from.
Really?
He was setting leads. While I was out working, he was in the call center setting leads. But it was, Rodney's the best. He's a millionaire, and I'm doing a podcast in Manhattan right now trying to pay my bills. So anyway, God bless Rodney Webb. Send me some money. I'll come work for you. But no, the point I'm making is like, so Pace Setters was, a company. They really started the evolution, some things, and they got really out there and they started putting liens on people's houses, and then all kinds of things fell apart. But there's not really been anything like this.
Was it COVID that made this happen? Like, why was it that all of a sudden, like my hypothesis is that it was COVID and then the money was there.
See, I don't think so. I think it's smart people seeing opportunities.
Right.
It's smart people like a friend of ours that we know, we won't say his name, but who's smart enough to recognize an opportunity and capitalize on that opportunity. And when you have, and here's the thing, look at the evolution of our business. When this business was in the 80s, it was built off my grandfather. then the father, and then maybe the son.
Right.
The
Yeah.
sons don't want to continue this anymore. It's too much like work.
Right.
The reason why people got in this business, from an installer standpoint, a lot of them couldn't do anything else. I can't tell you how many VSI training classes that I've done that 60% of the attendees couldn't read.
Right.
I had to read the test to them. Which is the problem because I can barely read myself. So
Paulie B's teaching
I had
you
to change the answers on the test to get them through it.
English lessons with Paulie B.
But the point I'm trying to get across is such an evolution in this industry, such an involvement. And it's got to a point that these people really needed these acquisition companies to help them survive, to give them a shot in the arm, to show them a new way. And I don't view it as negative because you know what these acquisition companies do? They make people get their price up. Why? Because they got people they got to pay. The only negative thing about an acquisition company is this. At some point, there's an accountant sitting up here, start crunching the beans. Well, we need to cut this person out. We need to cut this person out. We need to cut this person out. And they don't understand how that emotional connection, that person's role, makes the success of that organization.
Right.
So that's the only negative thing I see. But, hey, from my standpoint, I'd rather call on 15 companies than I would 700, 900. I could be more efficient and effective.
So you're let's take you have a family business. You've grown it. Your son's involved. You're generating 10 million, growing 20% year over year, right? $10 million in annual revenue. You're selling baths. Private equity comes in with an offer at maybe 2x EBITDA or 3x EBITDA. Do you sell it or do you keep going independent?
Well, most of the time they target around 30 to 40 million. Those are the companies that they want.
Right, but they're starting to go in lower because then the market
they're lower because all the big fish they've been caught. Right.
So what do you say to that guy?
So here's a conversation we have. Sebastian, your dad was in this business for many years. Your grandfather was in this business. What do you want to do?
Right.
Do you want to continue to do this? What if I had a way that you can still be involved in this business, but I can position this business to succeed and keep your family legacy alive? Right. Is that something you might be interested in?
And then you can take your chips off the table and boom.
Boom. There you go.
You buy it.
And you know what the barber says? Next.
Yeah.
You'll get the next one.
Yeah. That is very interesting. And it's also kind of, it makes sense too, because a lot of these, if you think about McDonald's, right? McDonald's was basically taking something from the unit and scaling it almost like software, right? They wrote the processes for opening up the restaurants, for keeping the food, the inventory, and you're seeing that kind of thing happening across home remodeling and home improvement, where you're just like taking something that's working, but you're standardizing the processes, you're standardizing the technology, you're standardizing the way you acquire leads, and it's almost like it's almost like a benefit to the homeowner too, like what you were talking about before. We used to have all these tricks, all this creativity. It's like, it's the 80s, it's fun and loose. Nobody knows what the hell the guy's gonna say the next time, some con that he's gonna run. And now it's almost like you have all these brands, you have all these, processes that are kind of standardizing everything. It almost sounds like it's a better for the general consumer, right?
It is. And one of the things that I love about Rilla Voice and the tool you created, and I've been a fan from day one once I understood what you were trying to do, is people who sit in the office really don't understand what's going on in the field.
Right.
As a sales manager, you'll always say, if I would have heard that objection, I could have closed that sale.
Yeah.
But you never want to hear that objection because you're never really in the home.
Right.
And then hit and miss, how many opportunities did, what if the guy's mad at you and is there and he's sabotaging the sale?
Yeah.
What if he's not showing up? What if he does go through step 10, he stops at step 2?
Right.
Well, what you're really doing.
What if he's selling something he shouldn't be selling to the end consumer?
Exactly.
He's overpromising something.
But I look at your tool not just as a beneficial to help the salesperson. What you're doing is creating a model to create a better process for the homeowner to get a better end result.
Yeah.
I look at what your tool does as if it's more for the end user. Sometimes it is to just make the salesman better.
Right. Yeah. If you think about it, what it does, right? So it's And we have a lot of the private equity companies that come to us precisely because of that reason, because they're so process oriented. They want to make sure that everything's like standardized, that their brand standards are kept, right? Even beyond the sale. It's like we want to make sure that we're putting out a communication that we're proud of to our customer. And what it does is it kind of like, you've said this to me, it's like, we're going to clean up this industry. You know what I mean? Like you're kind of holding people accountable to a higher standard where you're saying like, hey, listen, there's a certain way we do this, right? You need to follow our process. You need to follow our standards. And when they go into the home, being able to forget about the fact that they're being recorded, the fact that they get the feedback right after the fact and says like, hey, here's the things that you missed that you should have done. Even if you close the sale, we have customers who have scripts that happen after they sell the job. After you sell the job, they want to make sure that the sales rep's doing a good job of setting expectations with the homeowner, saying like, listen, this is how long it's going to take. It's not going to be tomorrow. It's going to be in 2 weeks, right? Because it's going to take us time to come here. It's going to clean up. And they want to make sure that their reps are doing a good job at even selling the job, right? Even if it's sold. So yeah, I see that as more like the standardization of the industry, which is like where Rilla's playing in, right?
It is, and people got to understand, so if you sell by price, you will die on the sword.
Yeah.
And the thing, like, I don't get on the soapbox much, but there is one thing that I have a problem with, and I was setting consulting a salesperson from Boston last week. I was in Sarasota at a summit, and he said, I used to sell your product, but you've got all these other companies out there that are selling it, and they're getting good money. And I used to get that money, but I just go in now and I charge them half.
Right.
Okay. So, and you feel like you're doing them justice? Well, yeah. I'm charging them half. Well, first of all, if people have built the value around that offer,
right,
and they're accepting that's the price, and you by cutting the price, sometimes you're instilling doubt. If company A was this and company B is that, why is it so much cheaper?
Right.
People who go and try to cannibalize off other people's success should not be in this business.
Right. How does that happen, by the way? Because I've heard that companies I've heard that there's certain companies in certain markets that they like sell so underpriced. Like I've literally heard one of my customers say like, I don't even know how they do that because I know what the prices are that we get from our suppliers. They're probably getting the same price and they're selling to a point where it's not even like profitable. Like how does that even happen?
If you're going against a national chain company, like a Great Day or a Power or a Window Nation or Home Fix, there's a lot more cost all in.
Right.
Okay. If you're a mom and pop and you're selling 2 jobs a month and you're going behind these companies and they're benchmarking it at $3,200 and $2,600,
right,
and you're doing the labor and the siding costs you $300,
right,
that's pretty good money if you go and sell for $1,500, $1,600 and still be $1,000 less. But you can't scale that to profitability.
You can't scale that operation.
And the problem is people get so ego driven with winning.
Right.
Losing money is not winning.
Right.
Cut people's price is not winning.
Right.
Sabotaging another company's integrity and a brand that they've built and an approach and a set market price is not winning.
Right.
And as an industry, I take a stance against people. When I find people doing that, I let them have it.
Yeah. What have you like? I've heard of like people scaling that kind of model where they literally sell so cheap, like in large companies. What is the strategy there? Because I mean, I think about it as like you're looking at the industry. Most people will remodel their house like once or twice in their lifetime. What's the strategy? I thought maybe like the market share, but like how do you?
The strategy. People who can't sell play limbo.
I see.
You know what limbo means?
Try to go low.
How low can you go? How low can you go? Right? Because there's no sales ability in being the cheapest price. Right? And that's I tell anytime I walk in and somebody says they've got another quote. I say, I understand. I understand you feel, a lot of people felt the same way. However, they found the sweetness of price is gone after the bitterness of poor quality remains.
Right.
So just think about that.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great deal today. But what if that company's out of business tomorrow? What if
you don't have the warranty, you can't call back?
Who's going to come fix it?
Yeah.
How much value does a warranty have, but how much value does a company that's going to stand behind that warranty have?
Right.
My company We've been in business 45, 50 years.
You
Look
can't
at
do
our
that
business
unless you're
bureau.
like you're
look at our
keeping-
Google reviews.
Yeah,
Look
yeah.
at our testimonials. You have to have those emotional conversations with people, because if the decision is made just on price,
Right.
doesn't mean it's going to be a successful decision.
And it's usually harder to scale a business where you're barely getting getting 5% margin, right? It's like difficult to hire more people to do better work and to scale.
And gutter guys, classic example, gutter guys would do this all the time. They would sell gutter. They would sell it for $3 a foot. Well, I come in and sell it for $2 a foot. Well, guess what happens? The transmission goes out in my truck. So I just came out of a plant and working in a factory. I bought me a van or a truck and I put a gutter machine on. I've cut another guy's price. But now that my transmission's gone out, I'm not making the money to fix my truck. Now I'm out of the business.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can't do any work. You can't help nobody.
Right. So I'm just saying, it's inexperience. People who can sell don't have these problems.
Right.
People who have selling systems don't have these problems. People who have a one closed selling system, listen, if you're not closing it today,
Right.
there is no coming back. I was trained on the philosophy, you sell or you die.
So I wanted to ask you about these new kind of sales methodologies. Because one of the things that fascinates me is you literally look at the home improvement industry, the top players in the mid 2000s look much different than the top players now. Again, we mentioned West Shore, Window Nation, A1 Garage. These are, billion-dollar companies that generate hundreds of millions, if not billions in revenue. And back then they were the up and comers, right? And one of the things that I look at is that when the recession came, everybody cut back on budgets. The old traditional business models, they kind of cut back, and then it allowed for the innovators, the disruptors, to come in and say okay, I'm gonna get really good at SEO, at online marketing. I'm gonna get really good at sales process excellence, at call center excellence, and adopting the new kind of technologies at the time and the new business models that were enabled by the technologies. What do you think are the things now we're getting into a contraction, recession, however you want to call it? What do you think are so back in the late 2000s, we were talking about SEO and adopting the new wave. What do you think are the new things that the up and comers now that are going to be the leaders in a decade from now? What do you think is that they're going to be using? What business models are enabled, or what technologies do you think?
So let me start with the strategy. You have to pay more attention to the buyer today,
right,
than ever before, and the evolution of the buyer. I train people, if I'm going to come in and sell you windows, I'll Google, what are 12 questions that you should ask someone selling you windows?
Right.
Understand the thought process. This is where a lot of people, they want to sell the same way that they sold 10 years ago.
Right.
Or you got the same sales guys got 30 years, the same 1 year's experience repeated. Right?
Yeah.
The successful companies that I have, and I won't tell their names, but they're using technology through an Engage presentation tool,
right, yeah,
that shows them how much time they spent on each slide,
right,
how much time they went through this, and then there's a correlation to close based on the process that you follow through.
Right.
Using your tool is the best insurance policy that any company could embrace, bar none, of anything in the industry. If I had to pick one tool as a company that I would use, being a sales trainer, and there's been years I've trained 20,000 salespeople a year.
Right.
Live or virtually.
God damn.
This is what I do. All right.
Yeah.
So hit the casket. But what I'm saying is, it's all about processes, systems, being able to track data, being able to understand the change in the behavior of the buyer.
Yep.
And to think like a buyer. I mean, there was a time where people would just, they were so busy, just make it go away. I don't care. Just, if the wife was happy. But there was also a time where people would not go in the home and call on a one-legger, which would be a wife at home.
Right.
That is not the way it is today. There's many women that are making decisions on their own
the
without
spot.
the presence of a man.
Right, because they
you
control
want
the
to
budget.
sold a woman tell them you don't trust her enough to make a decision? She makes all the decisions in
Yeah.
the home. You don't trust her to make a decision for the home? Are you an idiot? We got to get rid of those stereotypes. We have to change our belief system.
What about one of the things that always fascinated me is that you would have thought that virtual selling would have taken hold, right? But people
has.
okay. So tell me a little bit about that.
So I was one of the founding fathers on this virtual thing about 7 years ago. I always believed my vision was what I wanted to create was to have a warehouse with cubicles. And one guy would have 10 or 12 different shirts. Hope nobody hears this and steals this idea. But 10 or 12 shirts, and we would subcontract out to other companies, and he would be a remote closer. You'd have somebody in the home playing Vanna White, showing the windows. The remote closer comes in, does the close, the presentation, the demo, and closing percentage. He does 2 or 3 a day. He can make $25,000 to $40,000 a month and not leave his house. So
why hasn't that scaled you? So
we started evolving, and the first thing I did was I went to the guy that truly was the godfather of virtualization and visualization, a guy by the name of Dale Thornberry.
Okay.
He created Eagle View when he was just out of college, multi-million-dollar company, and he sold it. He's the guy that the hover guy when was flying over here taking pictures of war and all this stuff. He's the guy, Dale was the guy to say, here's how you take this technology, and I can show you how to use this technology to do measurements. He still has his name on almost every patent for hover, right? So once I sat down with him, I said, we need, and this was way before I met you, but we were launching remote virtual selling models.
Right.
And they had the technology called CoreLogic is the only one at the time. Now Paradigm Vendo does a great job. At the time, One Click Contractor was the only one that you could take a picture and translate it to measurement, to a proposal, to a contract, to a price, and email it straight to
with
you.
computer vision? Is that what they were doing?
It was CoreLogic was the technology. They're the only ones that still have that. The only thing that's holding back the remote virtual process, and let me tell you, decking companies are killing it.
With the virtual process?
Yes.
Got
Decking
it.
companies close, they do the aerial view, they do the estimate, the proposal, bam, show up and install. Decking companies.
Really?
Now, some of these new models for kitchen cabinets, where you can take pictures and it'll do AI technology, come in and start morphing different ideas and colors.
And you can present right there.
You can measure everything. Roofing has become huge.
You could do the.
The only thing that has been a problem is in the exterior is because you have trees, you have different things that kind of block in the way. And it's hard to get that, but you still can take a picture and transfer it. But I think this industry is going to evolve. So I came up with another idea that I'm creating and patenting called the virtual box. The number one problem in remote virtual selling is emotional engagement. So you work 3 to 11, your wife works 3 to 11, you're never going to have a sales guy come into your home. I have a billboard that says, Bone Siding, we offer estimates of 24 hours a day at your convenience.
Right.
I'll mail you a virtual box. It has a piece of siding, all the tools, chemicals. I have you demo yourself. I'm on this. I make it emotional. I come by the day prior and I do a complete analysis video around your house with a GoPro and write a diagnostics, everything that's wrong with your home, and I send you that video.
Right.
So now I found a way to make it emotional.
Right.
Because where the process falls that people forget, the reason why virtual is struggling is because you cannot pick a color online. Do you ever think about that? You can't pick a color.
You can't because you can't
It's not
see it
accurate.
because you can't see it with your home and how it fits and stuff like that.
If you take a piece of paper that has a color code on it, then you take a color swatch, this size,
Right.
this size, that size, and when this size, you lay them on top of each other, the eye will all designate they look different.
Right.
Absolutely. Why? Because that's just what happens, and that's the problem. Just because color looks something online, where you buy a dress, it's not going to look that when it gets delivered.
Right.
You buy a pocketbook, it's not going to look that when it gets delivered.
So with the dresses, you solve the problem by like having like the free returns, which also is like really bad business.
But you're not going to return 35 squares of siding.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to change your number and leave town for that.
You're going to get the hell out of it.
But the point I'm making is that's been the biggest holdup in the virtualization process is color. But the real easy process comes back to financing. We pull up 6 options. the consumer chooses which of the plans
Right.
they go
And
with.
then just like,
They want
boom.
10-year,
Just like
and
buying
they
on
can
Amazon.
shop rates.
It's just like buying on Amazon. Yeah.
And it empowers them to have multiple options for finance choices.
So, Paulie, so we've talked about a lot of things, and this has been great things. So, just my main 3 key takeaways for customers and partners listening, people in the home improvement industry. Number 1, recessions have come and gone, but the homes are always there, and the problems with the homes are always there. That's number 1 takeaway for me.
Always a need.
Number 2, if you want to build value with your customers when the market's contracting and they fear the future, the best thing you can do is show up with a helping hand, with a consultative approach. Make sure that they understand that you can trust them, right? And they can trust you, right? And you build that bond. And you can do that by buying beer. Literally show up, give the customer a gift.
We're zen.
And number three, the big takeaway from me is that whenever there's a market downturn, whenever things are not looking good, that's when the average person, they fear, but the visionary, the opportunist, that's where they see the opportunity. And just like happened in 2008, some of the best companies that emerged in the last decade came from the recession. And I think the same thing's going to happen by adopting new business models, new technologies. So, Paulie, let's do the quick rapid fire, the Rilla rapid fire. Paulie's are quick questions. You need your answer super quick. So let's do it. So, Paulie, what's the last book you read?
How to Win Friends, Influence People.
Oh, nice book. Paulie, what is the most unusual place you've ever closed a deal?
In a garbage dumpster.
Okay. The garbage dumpster. If you weren't in sales, Paulie, what would you be doing?
I'd be dead.
Okay. What is your guilty pleasure snack?
Oh, that one's tough. Cracker Jacks.
Cracker Jacks. Let's do it. What's the one thing you want to do before you die?
Be the greatest siding salesman ever.
Let's do it. You got to take it worldwide. What's a skill you want to master?
Listening.
If you could time travel, what would you do forwards or backwards? Would you go forwards or backwards?
I would go backwards.
The best piece of advice you've ever received?
Stay humble.
Amazing. That's a rapid fire.
So this has been awesome. I've enjoyed it. And just a message, during times of, we'll call this fake recession that's coming up, that I think is important to understand is this is a time to check your gut.
Yeah.
This is a time to really figure out, because at the end of the day, the reason somebody succeeds or not, whether they fail or not, is whether they make that decision if they want to win or if they want to be like somebody else. There is no excuses. There's no Band-Aid solutions. You're not going to make this stuff go away by blaming it on somebody else. The company didn't give me good leads. Rilla didn't give me good data. We have to stop, because we have to be accountable for what we're doing. And I'm going to give you the best advice was ever given me. The windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror for a reason. Let's focus on what's in front of us, leave what behind us, and let's focus on where we're going, the road we're traveling, because where we went yesterday doesn't matter. Where we're going tomorrow is the only results that we can measure ourselves by. So the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror. Your success in your career and your belief in yourself should be bigger than what was behind you, and focus on what's in front of you for tomorrow. And thank you. Such an honor to be here.
So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today to the Rilla Labs. This has been awesome with Paulie. If you want to learn more about Rilla and learn more about how to use AI in your business, go to rillavoice.com. That's RILLA voice.com, and book a demo with one of our highly trained sales consultants who have been trained with the latest in AI technology. You can see how he did. Paulie, where can people find you or hear more?
So if you would like help and coaching, I am available through Westlake Royal Building Products. If you use our products, so this is a cool thing. If you use our siding, if you use many of the tools and products that we sell, you have my consulting services. This is not a sham wow moment. This is actually true for free. Just by being a strategic partner with Westlake Royal Building Products, we can help. You name it, we can take all the blame away and make results happen for you overnight. Find me on LinkedIn, Paul Burleson. I have a lot of other channels you can find me on, but we're going to start with that one. Thanks so much for letting me be here today.